Hi garden friends! It is your garden teacher, Farmer Hillary. The garden really misses you. I really miss you. The other garden teachers miss you, and the garden volunteers also miss you. It's been such a long time since we've seen you in person. There was kind of an accidental thing that happened, so most of the food that's still growing we aren't able to eat. But we can still just look at some of the beautiful stuff that's happening in there, and we'll look forward to another season in the coming year when we can grow lots more beautiful stuff, and you all will be able to help with that again. One thing that we usually do when we come into the garden together, or before we come into the garden together, is we do our garden rules. Do you guys remember those? It's been kind of a long time, so I might need a reminder too. There's 4 of them, right? So there's motions that go with them. Let's see if we can remember them together, okay? So walk in the garden, wait to be invited, listen with respect, and take a deep breath. Ooh, the air smells really good out here. So those are the garden rules, and I haven't said them in such a long time because lately I'm kind of in the garden by myself a lot with the plants, and the plants don't really need to know the garden rules, so it's good to be reminded of those. Thanks for helping me with them. Hi friends, we're gonna do a little bit of a garden tour. Since you haven't gotten to be in the garden for such a long time, I wanted to show you what has still been growing. And like I said before, we aren't able to really eat much of what's still left growing, but we are going to look at how beautiful a lot of it is. Okay, so I wanted to show you, there's some really brightly colored, beautiful. Does anybody know what these are? Oh, it smells really interesting. This is actually a tomato, right? This is a tomato, and this variety is called sun gold because it's beautiful golden orange like the sun. And there's also some other kind of cool stuff growing here. Can you all see this fun thing? These little friends? These are something that you might remember from previous years if you had been in the garden before. These are actually called mouse melons because they look like a watermelon, but they're about the size that a mouse would need for a watermelon, right? So this is actually the only circular bed in the whole Rose Valley garden, and most of the time we grow flowers or other beautiful things in this particular bed. There's a lot of beautiful stuff growing in the garden, but this one in particular has things that we might not be able to eat usually. So this one didn't ever get a chance to bloom, but this is actually a bee balm, and this one is called shiso. It has really fragrant leaves, so that's kind of a fun one, and the bottom side of it is this beautiful purple color. Isn't that cool? And there's another little flower I wanted to introduce you to. It's actually called a snapdragon, and I think there's a way we can actually make the snapdragon oh hello. So that's a snapdragon. That's not something that we usually can eat. And then right here, this plant is one that's actually, we call it a perennial because it's something that is always growing. It kind of goes to sleep for the winter, but then it comes back again in the springtime and grows beautiful purple flowers that are really fragrant, and it's called lavender. And even just the green part of the plant that's left right now, ooh, actually still smells really fragrant. That's nice. I wanted to introduce you to a plant that some of you have probably met before, but this is one that we sometimes call magic bean. It's also called a scarlet runner bean, and the plant doesn't have any of its scarlet colored flowers left anymore. Scarlet is another name for a red color, but it does have lots of beans on it, and this might not be quite the color that we expect it to yet because the plant isn't all the way grown and it hasn't had a chance to ripen yet, but this is what the bean looks like in there right now. Isn't that beautiful? That's just bright pink. Oh, and if we take that case off, that's just like a regular little green bean, huh? I'm not sure if we've grown these in the garden before here at Rose Valley, but this right here, this is actually called a gourd, G-O-U-R-D. And gourds are not something that we would ever eat, at least not this particular kind. Most gourds are just ornamental, which means that they're just fun for looking at. And in a lot of different places around the world, people will actually dry gourds and use them, like make them into tools. So like some people will actually make them into bird houses, or like a scoop or a spoon or even a cup. And the other thing people will do with them is dry them out and use them to a piece of art. They'll actually make designs on the outside. So that's kind of a cool thing too. But these gourds are pretty interesting shape, right? Look at that. And then there's one here too, behind the trellis. Look at that one. That one's big. There's another kind growing over on this other trellis called birdhouse gourds. So these are specifically used for making birdhouses out of. They dry them out, wait until the inside dries out all the way, and they drill a hole in the outside, and then they let all the seed, like take all the seeds and stuff out. And that's a good little home for a bird. This is one of the fruit trees that has been growing in your garden. It's only been a few years actually. This is kind of one of our newer trees. And I don't know if you can see these really beautiful, they're kind of tan, almost kind of orangey fruit. These are called Asian pears. And Asian pears are really crispy and crunchy like an apple, although the texture is a little bit different inside, kind of feels different in your mouth. But look at that beautiful kind of orange, almost pink color too. And these are really delicious. You could eat them fresh just like an apple. Sometimes people will dry them and make them into like dried fruit that tastes really, it's almost way sweeter than it would be otherwise. But this tree, this one tree, look at how many fruit it grew. That is pretty amazing. Just that little tree, and it grew. That's like probably 2 dozen Asian pears. Good job, little tree. There's another tree right here, another fruit tree that just got planted this year, so it doesn't have any fruit on it like your Asian pear over there does. But there's also this plant growing in here. I don't know if you can see this thing that almost looks like a submarine. It's so big. This is actually a zucchini. Can you believe that? And it's still growing. So if we wanted to, we could let that keep growing, and then we could actually cut it open and we could harvest the seeds out of it and dry them out and plant those next year and grow more zucchini. Thanks so much for joining me on that little tour of your school garden. It was really nice to get to talk to you, even though I can't see you right now. You can see me, and it's so nice to be able to show you what's going on in your garden and how it's growing. And I really look forward to when you all can be back in the garden again with us, and the plants are really excited about that too. We miss you. Take care.